Okay, we look to be all good. How are we doing? You're very
Sure.
welcome to
Great.
episode 41 of Kickoff Sessions. Before we started recording, I said I was always a big fan of the Happy Pear, but it's interesting because I'm not vegan myself, but I would have followed a lot of your stuff early on from a lot of your flexibility and running on your hands and doing all your mobility stuff. So that's where first got me interested in the Happy Pear back 2 years ago, 3 years ago now.
Oh, good on you, Darren. Thanks. Yeah, our big thing isn't really about vegan or vegetarian. It's trying to encourage people to eat more veg because I think
Mhm.
it's the single biggest thing anyone listening can do for the environment, for their own health, and for the health of the planet and future generations. So I think it's
Mhm.
yeah.
I
I
think
think
this is really
I
cool
think
about
that
that is,
that word can often be binary, and you hear it, you go, "I'm not a vegan. Feck off, you fucking
yeah.
vegan hippie." You know, this type of it can often evoke this type of response in people. Whereas
Mhm.
I think it's more about just trying to maybe tread a little kinder on this planet. And I think
Absolutely.
vegetables or eating more whole foods is very beneficial for all of us, for our own health and the health of the planet.
I think it's more so around the education part of it. Like, as in, if you're just giving people this like well-rounded education, then they can make their own informed decision. That's what's much better than
Yeah,
like shoving an opinion down someone's throat often. But what I
yeah,
found like
yeah.
super interesting about Happy Pear was about like the niche of it. Like, as in, it's a very particular part which has really grown really well in the Irish economy, and it's got a great brand name and everything. So, what was some of the background between how you picked that various area, and was it more so driven towards when you were younger and fell into this kind of new kind of way of eating or a different types of habit?
Yeah, I think people can, it's often with retrospect, you can be very analytical and go, yes, I did this and I found that niche and I consider the market and I found that to be a gap. But the reality is we're all fumbling along, me included, and was just following my nose and what found us in. When I say I mean me and my twin Dave,
Yeah.
and kind of what found our interest. We kind of, to give a quick summary of a backstory, at least from my own perspective, I went to UCD, studied business, had kind of very much bought into the American dream, milk rounds of joining one of the big, I don't know if it was 6 or 5 or 4, I don't know, one of the big accountancy firms. Maybe I'll be an investment broker or banker. Maybe I'll make $1 million before I'm 30, and then I'll do what I'm interested in, knowing that I had no real interest in accountancy or, financial markets. It was kind of dull and boring, and for people who liked wearing suits, which wasn't necessarily my thing. So did a master's, and mostly I did it because I didn't know what to do, and I was kind of afraid to get out and join the workforce. And in a weird way, I don't think I was ready to leave the institution of formal education. It provided a nice safety net. If people ask, "What are you doing?" It's like, "I'm doing a master's." "Oh, good on you, well done." Often, at least for me, I was kind of afraid to be released from that formal setting. And then when I finished that, I kind of, so no, me and Dave had explored that summer about setting up an environmentally sustainable property development company, but we didn't know, we'd no experience. We were dreaming, and we didn't have money. So it was like, okay, this sounds great. It's a great idea and it's a nice niche, but in reality, we've no experience, we've no money. So like, maybe we should just go get a job. So I bought a one-way ticket to Canada, and mostly went there because I wasn't sure what I was interested in, and I wasn't feeling excessively happy. I remember saying to Dave, "I'm going away and I'm not coming back until I know what I'm interested in, until I feel happy." And it wasn't that I felt unhappy or depressed. It was just I felt like there has to be more to life, and what I'm doing at the moment isn't necessarily bringing out my joy. It's bringing out this sense of, I don't know, this sense of monotony, if you will. And so went away and spent the next couple of years kind of experimenting with social conditioning. We all, you included, me included, you're raised by your parents or your whatever loved ones, and they tell you they paint one version of success, and then you go to school and teachers paint another version of success, and then you go to university and friends, and
Yeah.
you know media portrays success in various different ways. So by me traveling for a few years, and this at the time, so I didn't have social media, I didn't have a phone. You were literally, it was like the old days. So you kind of really could explore different areas, and no one knew who you were. So I remember arriving to Whistler, and all my way through school and college, I was a jock. I loved going to parties, I loved drinking, I played a lot of sport, I had muscles, I was and it was kind of like, I don't want to be that character. I've been that character for over a decade. Maybe I'll be a hippie. Yeah, that looks interesting. Let's try being a hippie. And I conscientiously joined a different social circle. Then instead of going to these parties, it was like, no, I'm gonna go read up about vegetarian cookbooks and join people who were interested in cooking with vegetables.
Yeah.
Because I was very interested in that time at the time, and then spent the next couple of years experimenting with life, and where, you know, literally following my own nose. You know, from there I went tree planting in northern Canada, where we get a helicopter to work, to hitchhiking all around the US and sleeping rough, and just trying to find my way through life. And it was through that journey that I found out I was fascinated with food. Seemed to be a wonderful crossroad that intersected so much of life. You know, often it's, and I'm only saying this retrospectively now, but at the time I didn't know what the hell. I was just interested in it. But I think politics starts on the plate that, you know, everyone has to eat. And I think sharing a meal with someone brings you closer. And I think so much of modern day ailments happen because we're disconnected from our food, from the natural world, and we're not really consuming food that nourishes us. So we decided, you know, I was like, I want to start a revolution, Dave. I found through this journey, I feel much better. I have more energy. I feel more connected. I feel more alive. It's like, I want to inspire other people to do this. So myself and Dave, that's my twin brother, we moved back to Greystones, our little hometown. And we borrowed 100 grand and we bought a little red van and we did a little fruit and veg shop. We used to get up at 4:30 a.m. and go into the fruit market. And to a lot of, you know, our parents and family and friends, it was like, what happened to the lads? Like, are you selling drugs out the back? You know, what's going on? You know, there was this kind of preconception.
But that's
So,
interesting
yeah.
because like it's the exploration, because like I was in a very similar boat when finished university. I thought I wanted something so much, and then when you land into a job, you get that kind of retrospective look and it's like, well, is this my 10, 20, 30-year plan? And I think COVID was really important in my own kind of career development because I could look at what was working well, what wasn't working well, and then make a more informed decision. I did make a lot of fundamental changes, even started a podcast along the way. I think that's quite interesting. But what's really cool is the fact that, like you said, travel was a big influence to you, and I have the exact same perspective. So we've done a lot of traveling, mainly Asia, Southeast Asia. But do you think a lot of those kind of like out of your comfort zone, like complete different environment, new people? Do you think that's what really gave you these kind of like new perspectives versus staying in Greystones for the last 30 years?
I like. I think we all have to work with what we have, and at the time, travel was very beneficial for me because I was I am an identical twin, and growing up, I always had this joint identity. So it was quite important for me to get away from that and to explore. Oh, someone called me Stephen. Wow. You know, because so much of my life I was called Flynn Twin, or which one are you? But I think for anyone listening, I don't think it's necessarily about being in Asia or being in Canada or being in North America. It's a lot of my experience with life is that a lot of this growth happens internally, and that even in your hometown, if you can start mixing in different social circles, you know, joining different clubs, you can have a similar experience. That it doesn't necessarily, it's often easier when you're in a different setting because people don't know you and you're less, you know, you're less self-conscious, like, oh, that's whoever's son it is or whoever's daughter, and what's he doing that? He shouldn't be doing that. You know, I thought he did this. You know, it's often easier. It gives more social mobility. But, you know, I think one can still experiment while at home and to try different things. And now in the age of the internet, I think people can really connect up at home with many different people and find like-minded people in their little niche that interests them. So I don't think it's exclusive to traveling.
Yeah, exactly. It extends beyond that, you know, especially when you were like even decided to pick a restaurant or whatever. Like when you made that move, how difficult was that for you really to even just have the kind of self-awareness to kind of back yourself? So even 100K alone seems quite substantial now, or even whenever it was, like when you put the foot down and went through and carry, like, you know, really went through your paces, how did you really kind of factor all these different elements in?
I think, like, being identical twin, we were quite fortunate in that we always had support. Like, say, for example, say, Darren, if you were going traveling now and you went to Dublin Airport, you'd probably be very self-conscious, you know, going to a corner and starting stretching or doing handstands or looking a bit silly. But if you're with your friend, you're much more likely to do it, and not, you know, being comfortable being a bit foolish and being a bit silly. It kind of gives you that more, you're less afraid of what others think. And I think having an identical twin, it kind of gave us that more sense of courage and less concerned about people criticizing us or saying, oh, they're stupid, or why are you wearing those clothes, or you look stupid, you know, whatever it was. So I think it was very fortunate for us in that regard that we were a little bit more brazen and a little bit more courageous in that regard. But at the same time, we didn't really have a huge plan. We were kind of following our nose, and we kind of had this deep faith that, sure, if it doesn't work out, we'll find something that we're good at. You know, we like to work. You know, I'm not looking for a cheap, easy lunch. You know, I wanna work, and we'll, you know, we can find a way. So I think there was this blind faith and this desire to work and huge belief in what we were doing. And I think when we started the business, we found that if you're having a laugh and enjoying what you do, you tend to attract other people who want to help and want to get involved. And, you know, there was always a greater social mission that, like, I wonder, can we create a happier, healthier world? Like, that's, you know, money is simply a means to an end, but the end is a happier, healthier world. You know, it wasn't, you know, when we started the business first, I was adamant that it was about a charity. Like, this isn't about money. This is about creating a better world. Me and Dave, we nearly called it Flynners Fruit and Veg for social change, as opposed to the Happy Pear.
Even with that though, like your perspective on this, so like, you know, I think you're looking back and now and you do have like a lot of really good understanding of like what your strengths were and even what your weaknesses are. But do you think this has been learned through time, or do you think you've always kind of had this within yourself? Because like you've patience, you've been looked at it from a very practical perspective, whereas often, you know, people would like a quick fix, or, you know, they get discouraged when they might need a longer kind of stint through it. And even I recognize it myself, you know, if I've been podcasting for 6-7 months, you feel like you often may even deserve a little bit more. So even if people are kicking off something or trying their own side project or working on their own career, how can they really have that kind of really patience that you've kind of had? And you've always been like looking at the kind of glass half full kind of emphasis, which is quite difficult to do when some things can be going against you at times, possibly.
Yeah, I think the more, for anyone listening, if you kind of want to try to find a similar type of motivation, I'd say, one, try to do something that you love, not something that you're doing it for the money or the paycheck or the notoriety, but it's something that you love doing, that the money doesn't really matter. Like, you know, for the first 7 years, I didn't take a holiday. I remember, this is a bit of a weird story. I remember going down to a rave in Arklow. We just bought our first van, and I remember getting stopped on the way home, and I hadn't drunk anything and I wasn't in any way drunk, but he stopped, the guard stopped me and he asked me, were you insured? And I said, no, I think I'll be insured as of tomorrow. And I didn't realize that this was a big problem. And I remember going to court then and being stopped driving without insurance. And I remember the judge asking, how much are you being paid? And I said, I'm being paid 10,000 euros a year. And he couldn't believe that I was being paid so little. And he thought I was lying. But we were so comfortable with what we were doing. I was living at home. I didn't need money. You know, I was doing what I loved. I didn't want a holiday. I'm building something great. I love it. So I think the more you can find that sense of motivation, the easier it is to persevere when times are hard, because the nature of anything is there's going to be struggle, there's going to be challenges. And the more you enjoy it, the easier it is to stick with it. And I think the more you're doing it with someone that you enjoy spending time with, the more it makes it more of a laugh. I remember working with Jamie Oliver a little bit in London, and they always said that if you can hire someone that you enjoy spending 7 hours on a plane with, well, then they're probably, you know, they're a good person that it's easier to, you know, enjoy the process with. And I think that's as much, because so much of modern day society, we're looking for the hack, the shortcut. You know, maybe if I invest in Ethereum or Bitcoin, maybe I'll make $1 million like in a year or two, and then I'll buy a house and then I'll be happy. Or, you know, maybe I'll, you know, what's the hack for this or what's the hack for that? But in my experience, you know, there's no hack, and you got to put the work in. And if you want to master something and be good at something, you got to put the time in. And that's part of that is failure and struggling and pushing through it. But if you're doing something you love and you're enjoying it, it makes it a lot easier to stick with it, stick with those hard times.
That's really cool, because like I see even a lot of similarities in yourself and even Jamie Oliver. You're both like really passionate about what you do. You both really enjoy it, and you're both really like kind of like laid back and casual and happy, you know, kind of going every once in a while, which is pretty interesting if you see like the success that yourself and he has over the time, which is like really interesting when I look at, let's say, even like your YouTube or even like your just a brand as a whole. So like it's grown so rapidly and it's been like so successful. And do you really think that's because contributing factor was because you were almost not trying to make it successful because you just really enjoyed it and you really loved it, so you put everything into, you just really enjoy the process versus trying to just become really successful. It kind of happened inherently almost.
Yeah, I like, although I'd be very relaxed, we'd be always very ambitious and we'd always be
Mm.
very competitive. I think the nature of being an identical twin is we've been competing for our mothers, for society's love and attention all our life, that way, to try to
Yeah,
stand
yeah.
out to your twin. So we're highly competitive, and we never really set it up as just to kind of, let's kick around and sell a few pairs. It was like, no, I want to change the world. Like, I really want to try to create a happier, healthier world, and try to bring people together and enjoy life as much as possible. So I think, it's easy to kind of go, oh, they're very easy going, they got lucky, but we've worked so hard and we love it. So I think the thing is, the more you can find something that you love, the easier it is to stick with it and to enjoy
Hmm.
the process.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's a fun journey, really, really fun journey, and something that I love. Even Ned, who's my son, is 4, and he was kind of, Dad, can I come to work with you? Can I come to work? And I was like, why do you want to come to work? And he said, because work's fun. And I was like, you're right, work is fun. And I was delighted that he saw work as something that was fun and that he couldn't
Yeah.
wait to come, be a part of. And I
That's
asked him, what do you
funny.
want to do? I want to work in the Happy Pear. And what do you want to do? I want to work with you. I was like,
That's
oh,
so
boy.
funny. I remember actually seeing him on your story, actually, oddly enough, and at like 7 o'clock in the morning. But another kind of slant on this is like when things got kind of difficult last year. So like when all the restrictions came in and like small businesses or big businesses having to like adjust and come around to restrictions, things like this, as places are reopening now and they're slowly becoming back in tune, what would be kind of your advice for places that are reopening, that are trying to get back into the right kind of swing of things? Because obviously, with restrictions, it's quite difficult to plan things at the moment. So how have you taken your kind of own steps, and what would you kind of advise for other kind of businesses in that similar kind of avenue at the moment?
Yeah, I think, like, I guess COVID has very much, any business that's been overextended, that possibly leveraged themselves or borrowed too much money and had too many stores and were a little bit overstretched, it really kind of highlighted the lack of balance, or the lack of um, stability in them. Like, I know with us, we were slightly overextended in that we had 4 cafes and we kind of lots of other aspects of the business. And unfortunately, we've had to close 2 of them, which is really difficult and really horrible to lay people off. But at the same time, it's allowed us that opportunity to come back to our core and remember why we started the business, because it's very easy to fall into the allure of success. The business is going great and your revenues have just passed 10 million. You have 200 people working for you. Wow, well done, congratulations.
Mm.
And our egos got caught up with that, and we thought, oh geez, we're brilliant, well done Dave, well done Stephen. But in reality, there's a cost of everything, and there's the responsibility of that, and there's stress that comes with that. And then often you're like, why are we doing this? Like, I find I'm
Mm.
not swimming in the sea as much. I'm not, bringing my kids to school. I'm not necessarily having brekkie every day with the family. It's like, and then every time you go down to one of the cafes, you'd meet a new person working with you. And it's like, I don't know if I really would have hired them. The way, or is this, are these, our family, it just, so there's a cost with everything. And through that process, we kind of, COVID has helped us come back to our core. And in terms of, for us opening back up, I think it's to be conscious not to overextend, and to be conscious to do it slowly and gradually, and to try to manage the downside
Mhm.
as opposed to managing the upside.
I love that because it goes back to first principles. It's like, what do we actually want to do? What do we want to achieve? Going back to your initial mission of like making a global impact, global benefit to everyone. It's like brings you back to the core and the center, which is pretty interesting when you kind of just get caught up in the day to day activities. And it reminds you of startups, because that's usually where my podcast is in, would be with a lot of tech and kind of tech, kind of finance area. And a lot of people, when they scale and get too big, it's like, I've lost that touch and feel. I don't know everyone as well as I used to. And it's interesting to see how something that looks negative can actually turn out quite positive in the long run.
Yeah, I think it's easy to get caught up in growth, and it's intoxicating, and
Mm.
it seems fabulous. Wow, we're doing this, we're doing that. But I think for us, ultimately, true success is to be able to do something that we love and to have that balance where, you know, I can have brekkie with my family, I can go swim in the sea at sunrise, I can walk the kids to school, I can train, I can walk down the road, do something that I love, hang out with great people, and, you know, go home and spend time with my family. And it's to find that balance, because often, you know, it's modern day society celebrates people who make a lot of money and are materially successful. But what was the cost of that material success? Did their marriage or their family break down? Did they lose a lot of their friendships? Were they stressed? Did they have to spend a lot of their health to create wealth? And I think it's very easy to forget this. You know, it's very easy to get caught up in the sexiness and the allure of this quote unquote success. Whereas I think true success is, you know, the ability to be able to sit with yourself and, you know, feel, and when you're going to bed at night and go, that was a good day. I feel happy. You know, I did well. I feel if I died today, I did a good day. You know, I think the more we can live days like that, the more you're genuinely being successful, for me.
And I completely agree. And I think for myself, like I have been like chasing the numbers, chasing financial numbers, or it could be just like growth in all different areas, but I can see the impact it can have on other areas of my life because, you know, I'm working a full-time job, working long hours, kind of like everyone else. Everyone's working a lot these days. But I'm saying I can see this impact at 25 years old, 2 to 3 years experience now.
You know, it's a constant work in progress, at least for us and for everyone. I think, you know, I often struggle with slowing down. I often, you know, because, you know, we've a habit of busyness, all of us do. And, you know, it's hard to give yourself the time to sit down and spend that extra bit of time with friends during lunch, or that extra little bit of time with maybe, you know, your family or something like this. You're in a rush. I got this meeting, I got this call. But I think for me, the real moments are when you can actually take that time. You know, I think when you can go beyond the plans, and that's where life is exciting. And that's where often the magic happens, at least for me in my experience.
How do you think you can make that change in terms of like reflection, or do you think it's sitting down with yourself and just making that conscious decision, looking yourself across your health, your relationships, financial situation, and saying, look, I can pull the lever on my financial a small bit back to try improve my health? Because these are things I try to balance, you know?
Yeah, I think, like, to go a little bit philosophical, I think it's the ability to be present and to try to cultivate a good relationship with yourself. Because it's very easy to seek external success via money, via, look, he's got abs. Wow, look at that. Congratulations. Oh, he's got big muscles. Wow, look at his hair. You know, isn't he doing great? It's so easy to get caught up pursuing these, you know, externalities and other people's approval. But I think ultimately, at least from in my limited experience, I think the more we can feel a sense of comfort and a sense of joy within ourselves, irrespective of whether people like us or dislike us. Obviously, we all, you know, it's inherent in us that we want to be liked, we want to be approved, and everyone wants to, oh, isn't Darren great? Isn't Stephen great? You know, we all want to be told we're great and to be loved and accepted. But I think the more we can accept ourselves, appreciate our flaws, and find a sense of peace and ease within ourselves, I think that's success. And that's what I'm working on now. I turned 41 last year, and I think maybe it's turning 40. It kind of really reminds us, because it's very easy to get caught up in, you know, the next plan, the next dream, the next goal. But I think the more we can remember that we're going to die one day and that we don't know when that day is, and, you know, take those moments and enjoy them and appreciate just the passing moments, the fleetingness of life, I think the more life can feel rich, you know, more rich, or more, you know, just more joyful.
And more meaningful, you know. Firstly, you're looking great for 41. I would have thought you're about 30, 35, you know, so you're looking great for 41.
About 39 and a half. Yes!
Yeah. So you're doing good on that side. But I agree with you, though. It's being part of the tribe, you know, it's being like a front of the tribe if it's like, you know, ego driven or whatever. And then fundamentally, it's about just having like some sort of understanding with yourself and saying that, okay, is this really what I want long term? And I think that's a big thing of myself. And what I try to get across with podcasts is that, you know, even though it could be looking good one way, there's other pullbacks, other aspects of your life, which is difficult balance. But I think that you're a good model to base it off. So
yeah, I think simple things like, for anyone listening who's, maybe I went too metaphysical or a bit ephemeral there, but like simple things like we tend to forget that we're mammals and we're very disconnected from nature, and that we are actually a part of nature. We're not the gods of nature. We're not the you know, the rulers of nature. We're a mammal. We're a sophisticated mammal that does jobs, talks on things like these digital devices now, listens to things in digital devices, but we're mammals and we're a part of nature. And I think things that are very beneficial for us is spending time in nature. You know, we spoke to a professor from the London School of Economics who kind of did a lot of work on happiness, and he spoke about the importance of nature, the importance of music, the importance of friendship, the importance of trying new things. And for anyone listening, just even diet, simply trying to eat more fruit and veg is so good for your immune system and for your microbiome, which is kind of been proven now that there's a gut-brain axis, you know, that can affect your moods. So
100%.
there's a
And I
few
completely agree with
practical
that.
things.
Exactly. And there are logical things like just being in good health, you know, decent weight and not taking advantage of like, you know, crazy eating or not being healthy and whatnot, you know. But Stephen, I just say a massive thank you for your time. We could have easily gone for this for hours, but we have a 30-minute window. And actually I enjoyed a 30-minute because it's like short, compact. But I would like to say a massive thank you.